All right, let's jump right in. So picture this. You're scrolling through your newsfeed. You see a headline about a Chinese electric car brand. Then, in other news, a story about digital money in Shanghai. And over here, something about a big meeting of world leaders. They all seem totally random, right? Just another day of disconnected news. But what if I told you they're not disconnected at all? What if they're all just different threads of one massive, unfolding story? So, what do they have in common? That is the big question, isn't it? And that's exactly what we're going to unpack right here. Think of this as putting together a puzzle. We've got all these seemingly separate pieces, and by the end, we're going to see how they lock together to show us a picture that's, well, a lot bigger than you might think. Because you see, every single one of those headlines, it's a clue. And all these clues are pointing to the same thing, a truly historic shift in the global balance of economic power. It's happening right under our noses. So, let's get to it. Let's connect the dots. Okay, our first section, we're calling this the world's shifting ledger. And this is where we're going to start by looking at what looks like a coordinated challenge to the entire global financial system as we know it. You know, it's so easy to see these stories as just individual things happening. But the moment you zoom out, a much, much bigger picture starts to emerge, a clear pattern. What we're really seeing here isn't random at all. It's a deliberate, coordinated challenge to the financial order that's pretty much run the world for the last 70+ years. Which brings us to our next point, this big push to de-dollarize. Now, this is really at the heart of the whole shift. It's all about moving away from the US dollar's dominance. And there's a specific group of nations, the BRICS coalition, that's really spearheading this whole thing. So what is de-dollarization anyway? It sounds complicated, but the idea is actually pretty simple. It's just countries trying to reduce how much they rely on the US dollar for, well, everything. We're talking international trade, financial deals, even the savings they keep in their national reserves. But why? Why is this happening now? Well, listen to this quote from Paulo Batista Nogueira. He's a big deal over at the New Development Bank, which is basically the BRICS Bank. He says, flat out, the United States is undermining its credibility through its behavior. The argument is that recent U.S. actions have made using the dollar not just expensive, but also risky, which is pushing other countries to look for an exit ramp. And this group that's leading the charge, it's huge, and it's getting bigger. After a recent expansion that brought in countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and the UAE, the BRICS bloc now represents a staggering 3.4 billion people. Let that sink in. That's nearly half the planet. Now check out the economic muscle we're talking about here. The combined GDP of these BRICS nations is around $28 trillion. That is a massive number. Now to be fair, it's still smaller than the $91 trillion overseen by the traditional IMF and World Bank group, but make no mistake, this makes BRICS a real heavyweight contender in the global economic ring. Okay, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, because this leads to our third section, the dollar's enduring power. Dethroning the king is never easy, and the US dollar, well, its power is immense, and it is incredibly resilient. The dollar's dominance is really built on 5 huge pillars. First, the U.S. has veto power in key places like the IMF. Second, just look at the numbers. Nearly half of all trade payments and almost 58% of all foreign reserves are in dollars. Third, it's backed by the sheer might of the U.S. economy, its tech, and its military. Fourth, you have the world's most sophisticated financial markets like the New York Stock Exchange. And finally, the U.S. basically controls SWIFT. That's the plumbing for almost all international bank transfers. When you put all that together, you can see just how deeply baked into the system the dollar really is. This table really lays it all out, doesn't it? It's a tale of two sides. You've got BRICS with its 11 nations and massive population on one side. On the other, the established order with 189 nations and a way bigger GDP. It really feels like a David versus Goliath story. Except in this version, David is wielding a $28 trillion slingshot. And it's not all smooth sailing for the BRICS bloc either. They have their own internal challenges. It's not like they're all perfectly in sync. You have members like India that are a bit reluctant to go all in against the US, especially on things like a new payment system. Then you've got political instability in other member countries creating, let's just say, complications. Getting everyone on the same page is a huge hurdle for them. All right, so let's move on to Section 4, because this is where the theory hits the road. We're talking about the new economic battlefronts. This isn't just about spreadsheets and policy meetings anymore. This is playing out in the real world with products you can actually see and touch. Yeah, this competition is very real, and we're going to look at two key places where this fight is happening right now. And hey, remember those headlines from the beginning? This is where they come back into play. First up, the high-stakes race to control the future of digital money. China is making a huge move here with its own digital currency, the ECNY. They've just opened a new hub in Shanghai, and its entire purpose is to build the pipes and plumbing for cross-border payments. The end game is crystal clear. They want to create what people are calling a Chinese solution, a totally separate state-backed digital money system that doesn't have to touch the dollar at all. Okay, so let's shift gears now from the world of digital code to the factory floor. Let's talk about that other headline, the one about cars, because this battle is one you can actually see driving down the street. We're talking about the electric vehicle market, where a rising Chinese giant is going head-to-head with an American icon. And this shows the ground war in real time. Look at this. For the second month straight, the Chinese car maker BYD actually outsold Tesla in Europe. That's not a prediction, that's not a maybe, it's happening right now. The latest numbers show them ahead by nearly 1,000 cars. But this next number is what really tells the story, plus 244%. While the rest of the European car market was basically flat, BYD's sales just exploded. That's an insane level of growth. That is how you seize market share in the blink of an eye. And this slide just lays out the dramatic reversal of fortunes side by side. It's incredible. On one hand, BYD is tripling sales, expanding to over 1,000 dealerships. On the other hand, Tesla has seen 8 straight months of falling sales, with their total numbers down a shocking 43% from last year. This is a massive shift happening in a really important industry. So, we've connected the dots from a meeting of world leaders to digital money to the cars on the street. So what does it all mean? Where is this all heading? Are we standing on the edge of a totally new financial era? Well, here's the most important thing to remember. Huge shifts like this don't happen overnight. It's not like someone flips a switch. The decline of an old system and the rise of a new one is a long, slow, grinding process. And it's a fight that's happening on every front imaginable, from the code that makes up a digital currency to the actual steel and batteries in an electric car. And all of this, really, it boils down to one final huge question. For decades, we all knew the rules of the game in global finance. But now, with new currencies, new technologies, and new power blocks all on the rise, the future is completely up for grabs. So, who is going to write the rules for the next era of the global economy? That, right there, is the multi-trillion-dollar question that this whole competition is all about.